The apartment was, well, generally quite good. Of course, it surely was not perfect, but I was satisfied with how well it turned out to be. Considering the housing market, the deterioration of infrastructure in the recent years, and the overall vibe of the area, I would say that I got a bargain. It was a studio apartment, not too large, but perfect for a bachelor like myself. I was quite a food savvy kind of guy, so its space efficient kitchen layout was all too wonderful for cooking, especially when making food for company to invite over. Usually, I am rather quiet with my everyday life, so soundproofing walls were not that necessary. But just to make sure no lousy neighbor could ruin my personal space, I did get an insulation. Beside that, some small adjustments were made, and I also added various furniture to make everything a bit more comfortable. You know, I loved it. I don't want to brag, but hey, not everyone gets their dream house quite early in their life, like me. The moving in process, however, to sum up, it was a pain in the backside. I mean, it literally was. I was carrying a makeshift table set from IKEA inside when I bumped my lower back into a doorknob. The pain was infuriating. Not to mention the fact that my apartment was on the sixth floor, the whole complex had no elevators, and I had to do it all by myself. I wouldn't call it a great time. At the end of the day, I walked up and down at least 60 flights of stairs, and both my arms were burning like hell. I was totally exhausted. To make things worse, I did not get a chance to stay there in the evening when everything was finished either. I had a bit of a hassle of paperwork to do, so that night I drove back to my old place, trying to get it done as soon as possible, practically pulling an all-nighter. When morning came, I was sitting at a local gas station, sipping my already cold coffee with slightly noticeable bags under my eyes. At least the breakfast was good. A full British breakfast with beans, bacon, and eggs. Although it was quite rare to see this kind of meal being served there. Considering the culture and population of this part of the city, the weather outside was also kinda nice. Early sunlight with the occasional light breeze reminded me of those sweet July summers when I was younger. Anyway, since I called in the night before to tell my boss that I was gonna be off the following day, I had the whole day for myself. I figured a stroll by the beach would be a great way to start things off. It was about 6 a.m., so there weren't supposed to be many people there, except for the occasional old folks on their routine morning exercise. The sea was calm with very gentle waves, slowly caressing the shore. Out and about, if you strain your ears enough, you might find the soft humming of the maritime vessels on the horizon coming back to port after their night trips. Their loving whisper of greetings, if you will, to land, the place where they came and belong with. I always love the feeling of sand under my feet, especially in the early morning when it isn't so hot and sunny that I must stick to the shade. After walking for a while, I slowed down and found a nearby wooden bench to sit. The thing was old. It made a squeaking sound when I sat down, but showed no sign of collapsing. Rest assured, I popped one or two cans of beer bought earlier and enjoyed the moment. Though, to be honest, I should not have done that. I had to drive, but whatever. Lunch was good too. I decided to have something healthy to counteract the beer I drank a few hours ago. Corn Alfredo served with Russian salad and an avocado smoothie as a dessert. Well, not too bad, huh? Though the meal as a whole costed a bit too much for my taste. Anyway, for the rest of the afternoon, I spent time listening to random podcasts on my phone. After that, I drove back to my new apartment. The traffic was congested, but nothing outside of the usual. And what do you know, I arrived at exactly 6 pm. It was the perfect time for making dinner. Since I was a bit tired from a long day and the previous sleepless night, I figured making something light was a good idea. Sadly, I didn't get any chance to meet any of my new neighbors, considering that inviting neighbors over for dinner is what I usually do when moving into new places. After that, I carry on with my work from the day before, writing reports, managing files, etc. Finally, I went to bed not long later. To sum up, the first day of moving in was delightful. I hadn't had any time to explore the vicinity or meet up with anyone else, sure, but I never felt quite like home anywhere else. The apartment had a peaceful atmosphere to it. Everything was quiet, no loud neighbors, and no noisy traffic nearby. It also contained a calm and fresh feeling of easiness, which I had never felt before in any other places, making me fall asleep very fast and easy. The following second, third, fourth, and fifth day of moving in was not too shabby either. The commute to work compared to my old place was further, but it meant that I could take a less traffic heavy route to work, saving me a good deal of money on gas further down the line. Also, I did stroll around the area for some time in the evening. It was a nice neighborhood, so I wasn't worried about getting mugged on anything. I must say that I absolutely love the occasional cool and salty breeze blowing from the beach not too far away at night. And of course, I could still hear the soft humming and crashing of the waves even from there. What a place to be, am I right? But everything turned sour on the sixth day. I woke up at around the very early morning to odd sound coming from outside. Everything was dark, and somewhere in my mind, an alarm bell was ringing like hell, desperately triggering every sense of my body to respond. And the thing was, I could not tell where they were coming from. Sure, they weren't from inside my apartment, but I was not so certain whether they were emerging from the hallway of the complex or from outside my windows facing the street. At first, they started out subtle, but after a while, they grew louder and louder. The more I strained my ears to listen to them, I realized they were chanting or some sort of incantation, though I did not understand their meaning. At least, I was certain that only one person could not have made them. I heard many voices, though thinking of that now, I suppose those were more akin to the growl or screech of an awful beast rather than human voices, and they were ungodly. From time to time, among that horrid jarring, I could faintly make out the dreadful cry of a human. It sounded like whoever that was, they were being tortured through the ripping of their flesh, bit by bit, little by little, while their own sanity decaying by every moment until nothing was left. A glimpse of hell, a vision of the abhorrent fate of the souls unfortunately banished to such places dangled in my mind. As the second passed by, the melodiously ear-splitting cacophony of sound only became increasingly deafening, with no sign of stopping. It took me a moment to gather enough courage in me to get up and figure out what was happening. My bedroom window was nearby, so I instinctively checked them first. There was nothing outside but the empty street, but something was wrong about the scenery in front of me. I just couldn't wrap my head around the specifics of it at the time, but nonetheless, the feeling of dread was unbearably nauseating. However, the demonic voices did not come from the outside my window, which meant they could only be from the hallway. Slowly, through much hesitation, I crept as silently as I could to reach the front door. I did not open it immediately, of course, just to make sure that no one was waiting close by, ready to jump on me right after I did. I checked the peephole first. Strangely, there was no one outside, just a dimly lit, empty hallway. The other apartments showed no sign of anything suspicious. Hell, I could clearly see some of them and they were locked shut from the outside. That was weird, that was really weird. Where could those awful sounds come from? I was sure that no one was outside to make them, and of course none of the apartments on that floor seemed to be booming out those dreaded screeching. There weren't any public speakers like the ones seen in older complexes either. It must have been someone or something, and somehow for some reasons doing that. At that moment, something in me clicked, and I realized all of those terrible commotions should have been impossible. The soundproofing insulations I put on when I had made some renovations should have blocked all the sounds from coming in. I was sure they were high quality. I even checked them a few times. How the hell could any of that happen? What was going on? I took some time contemplating whether or not I should open the door to directly look at the hallway. The plan was simple. I opened and then closed the door as fast as I could, only leaving a small window of time for me to take a peek outside. For some reasons, I just couldn't do it. My guts were telling me there was something very wrong and that I should not take any further risk unless worse thing were to happen. Once again, it took me a while to overcome my fear, but alas, I did. With a deep breath, I opened the door, but instead of closing it right away after, I froze. As ear-shattering, as diabolical, and while also melodious as the sounds were, suddenly they were gone, just like that. They did not die down slowly, no, they disappeared into nothing, right when I opened the door. Needless to say, I was very confused, just like when I peeked through the peephole. Though nothing outside seemed to be suspicious, the feeling of dread in me was still there. And then it hit me. That god-awful smell. I immediately flinched back and closed the door as fast as I could. It was absolutely putrid, pungent, and suffocating. Reminded me of the smell of rotten eggs left outside for too long. I spent the next few minutes coughing and gasping for air while my eyes were practically crying. It didn't take long for the noise to come back after I closed the door. At that moment, I was so tired that I gave up and went back to bed. I decided not to call the cops because they would have seen me as some crazy junkie high on acid in the middle of the night if I had told them about all of that. I got little sleep. When morning came, I was a mess. My face seemed hollow and pale. Worst of all, I couldn't seem to focus on anything. I fell in and out of sleep at random moments. I kept getting distracted by every little thing. Needless to say, I couldn't even get through the day, let alone do anything productive. I tried to contact my neighbors to know whether or not they experienced the same thing the night before, but no one did. None of them. Was everything only in my mind that I imagined all of those horrible things the night before? Had I lost it that night? Though, since I couldn't really focus on anything, the thought quickly got brushed away and I painfully carried on with my day. The following few days were just as horrible. At night, the ungodly noise outside terrorized me while I tried as hard as I could to sleep. I even took sleeping pills, but they had no effect. There wasn't anywhere I could go to get a rest either. My friends lived very far away, and all the motels and hotels nearby were always fully booked. I was scared. Every time the sun set, I always had the ever-gnawing feeling of dread. There were also other things. Rarely did I fall asleep, but when I did, though only for a few brief moments, I dreamt. Those weren't just terrifying dreams, but visions of a decaying world filled with death and terror. I still remember one, though a less horrifying one than the rest. I was standing alone in a dark, withered meadow. The unforgiving howling winds slowly turned colder as they were dying down. A starless sky swallowed by eternal darkness. The air, however, reeked the metallic smell of blood. Not too far away, there stood a woman. Her frail frame was quickly trying its best to withstand the bone-chilling breeze. I could see that she was scared. I still remember the look of absolute terror on her face. She was bruised and bloody. Before I decided to get closer to help her, I spotted something nearby. They were small, and very quickly they were surrounding her. I could only catch glimpses of them, but they looked like children. Those sickly children were fast and vicious. Her agonizing scream still haunts me. One by one, they tore her apart. It didn't take long for her head, her limbs, and viscera to lay strewn around. They feasted on her like a pack of wolves. mercilessly shredding everything with their teeth. At that moment, I realized that I was their next meal. That was when I woke up and started vomiting. I couldn't remember exactly when, but at least from then on, all the clocks I saw were broken. They spun wildly, clockwise, counterclockwise. Sometimes they sync in together, other times they oscillated like a pendulum. Even the digital clocks, the numbers kept jumping up and down. On rare occasions, they turned fuzzy and then fused into weird symbols. Some days, I had nothing to eat. The food I bought went bad very quickly. One moment, they were fresh and ripe. The next moment, they were decaying, oozing out moldy substances and filled with maggots. The smell? Well, it was god-awful. I used to vomit a lot. From time to time, I would see silhouettes lurking in the corners of my eyes. Tall humanoid silhouettes. I never saw its head, only an unnaturally long, slim figure. Its lengthy limbs end in sharp and bony fingers. Or were they claws? Talons? I wasn't sure. It wouldn't be there for very long. As soon as I turned my eyes to its direction, it would disappear. Though one thing did stand out the most. At random times in the day, the walls, the ceiling, they would start bleeding. Thick red blood. The substance would ooze and flow while tinting it surrounding a murky dark red hue. And every time, all the streams would pull up into a spot on the floor and form the shape of a key. And for some reason, I would always lose control of myself. As if it had a soul of its own, my body would try to start bleeding too. I guess that would explain the various so-called self-mutilation marks on my body. For the sake of it, I could not remember any more details about that strange period that I've been through. The when and the how I was rescued from that wretched predicament have always been a too murky and distant of a memory for me to recall. But the pictures, the ones they took of that place when they first found me, those images will haunt me forever. Images of the total wreckage that used to be my home. Once tidy, now torn apart by almost unnatural fervor. A bloody smeared walls and ceiling. One picture captured my attention the most. It depicts a ceiling covered by a set of bloody hand and footprints that seems too large and extremely elongated out of proportion to be mine. Of animal carcasses, from rats to birds to stray cats and dogs. Scenes of half-rotten corpses scattering around and the disgusting streams of maggots and liquid pouring out from them. And finally, images of me, of my self-inflicted wounds, some barely healed, some still open, dripping out dark blood. Especially the 6 cuts on my stomach. 6 times I disemboweled myself, and somehow I survived all 6. I believe if you are clever enough, you might find more information on my case. The type of information too disturbing to be disclosed to the public and even to me. But I wish to persuade you to not do such foolish things. It's more likely that you will find something that will haunt you forever rather than satisfy your curiosity of the strange and the occult. There are still gaps in my memory of the event, though deep inside I am as perplexing of everything as you are. I do not wish to fill them ever. It has been 6 years since. I am now living in a mental institution, an insane asylum to be frank. I do get to meet my friends and relatives from time to time. I am well fed, I am cared for, and I have a full library to explore. Everything seems wonderful. Well, until this morning. My head was somewhere in the cloud when I fell down the flight of stairs I was descending. The fall broke my nose and left it crooked on my face. A few drops of blood spilled out on the floor right beside my feet. They started to pool together and form the symbol of a key.